In this video we're going to work our way through the last two steps of right angle trigonometry and solving the problems. And so probably the best way of going through this is to go through an example. So let's start off with our right angle triangle. And let's say we've got our right angle there and we've got a hypotenuse of, 12 centimetres. We've got an angle of 20 degrees and we're trying to find x down here. So we go through the previous steps. First of all, there's our active angle. So we will label our sides. So this side is the hypotenuse, this side is the opposite, and this side is the adjacent. Then we go through determining which function we're going to use. So if we type out SOHCAHTOA, like so, we can then go through and pick which functions we've got. So if we look at our triangle, we've got the hypotenuse that we're using, and we're looking for x, so that's our adjacent. So that would tell me that I'm going to be using the cosine. So the next step we do is step 4, where we use something called a ratio triangle to solve the problem. And this ratio triangle is, again, an integral part of solving these problems, because if you don't use this particular methodology, there's a good chance that unless you know all the ratios off by heart, that you might make a mistake. And I've certainly found with my students that once they get the hang of the ratio triangle, they tend to be able to solve most problems. So a ratio triangle is basically another triangle, like so. And you draw it quite big in your books so you can write in it. And it's a triangle made out with 3 parts. Now you might have seen some of these used in science. They use in science in terms of distance, speed and time, or in terms of electricity, etc., etc. But what we do is we take this triangle, and on each of the corners we write the 3 letters of the function that we're wanting to use. So for example, we're using the cosine, which involves the c, the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So what I tend to do is write, starting in the bottom corner, I write c down here, I write a up here, and I write h over here. And then I fill each of these sections with the information that I need. So for example, in the c part of the ratio triangle, I need to write the cos, because that's the function I'm using, and then the size of the angle, in which case it's 20 degrees. Then up in the adjacent section, we've got x there currently, so I'm going to write x. And then down for the hypotenuse I've got 12. And so at this point here, you've done step 4. You've filled out your ratio triangle. For step 5, we now solve it. And the way we solve it is we write this all out. So we're looking for x. So we write x equals, because that's what we're looking for. And then using your finger, you cover up the x. So imagine you're just covering this up. And what are you left with? You're left with the 2 values along the bottom. And when the 2 values are along the bottom, we multiply. So we imagine that this is a times along the bottom. If we were looking for something, a variable on the bottom, this line along here is a divided by. So we're going to be timesing in this case. So x will equal the cos of 20 times 12. And you simply do that on your calculator. Now, if you're on your calculator, some calculators open up a bracket. They might open up a bracket there. Just make sure you close the bracket before you put the times 12, if your calculator automatically does that. Either that or just put the 12 on the other side and go 12 times cos of 20. Now when you enter this into your calculator, you go x equals cos of 20 times 12, you should come up with the answer on your calculator, in this case here, for this example, of 11.2763 and so on. And what I asked you to do was to round, most problems will ask you to round to 2 decimal places, so this would actually be x, and I'll write very small down the bottom, equals 11 point, in this case here, because our third decimal is a 6, it would become 11.28, and don't forget your units. Okay, that's basically how you use steps 4 and 5 of the ratio triangle.